Fellow Big 12 fans, I need to be real with you for just 1 minute. We are not going to be on equal footing with the Big 10 and the SEC. The genie's out of the bottle, the toothpaste is out of the tube, and it's not going back in. Why do I say that? Well, I'll tell you right after this word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up? Welcome in. Come in, make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me pour you out a shot of top shelf college football content on tap at Couz's Corner today. I'm talking to you about the Power 3 that a lot of Big 12 fans are saying they think may come down the pipeline once the ACC implodes and the SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 gobble up the remaining ACC teams. And I'm not saying that can't happen. Maybe it will happen. But I still think the ACC will survive at the end of the day. It just may not look the same. But even if, let's say the ACC doesn't survive, let's be hypothetical for a minute. Let's say the ACC does, in fact, die, completely die, just like the Pac did. And the Big 12 gets a lot of their teams. I don't think it's realistic for us to believe that the Big 12 is going to, quote unquote, compete with the Big 10 and SEC. With everything that's coming down the pipeline, with all the lawsuits and stuff that every power conference school is going to have to deal with, the Big 12 is not going to be able to afford a lot of this stuff, folks. I mean, they can, but not to the same degree as the Big 10 and the SEC. The Big 12 is not going to die as a conference. It's not going to go away. They may even keep their spot in the college football playoff with the power conferences, and they may keep their autonomy conference status where they get their rules applied a little differently to them than it does the Group of Five. All of that may stay in place. I'm not saying that'll go away. But as far as competing on the recruiting trail on the football field, I think it's a big ask. I think it's a tall task to expect the Big 12 to remain competitive year in, year out with those two leagues going forward. And a recent article by Ross Dellenger is the reason I say that. Now, I've thought this for a while now, and I probably even touched on it in past videos, but I really didn't have anything to specifically point to as proof to back up my claim. Well, in this article Ross Dellenger wrote, he talks about the attorney who was basically suing the NCAA and the power conference schools on behalf of a former athlete whose last name is House. I cannot remember the athlete's name, but it's called the House case. It's known as the House case. And the attorney's name is Jeffrey Kessler. Now, in the House case, for those of you who may not know, just to give you a brief rundown, basically there are college athletes suing for NIL back pay. Now that the NIL laws are in place, there are a few athletes who are saying, wait a minute, we should have received NIL money when we were in college. We didn't. So we're asking for back pay. The belief is that the NCAA will likely lose, and the power conferences will likely lose this case. And at the very, very least, they will have to settle with these student athletes, and they will receive some form of back pay, and it could be in the billions of dollars. The number Jeffrey Kessler, the attorney, put out there in this article is $1 billion. He thinks that will be owed to these student athletes from the NCAA, but most importantly, the power conference schools, because they're the ones who have all the money. And that includes the Big 12 and the ACC, and even the Pac-2 right now. Oregon State, Washington State, they're even on the hook for this money because they were part of the Pac existed during this time, and the Pac is still on the hook for the money. And who is the Pac? The Oregon State and Washington State. That's why them getting some of that money in their lawsuit with the departing Pac schools was so important. They need that money to secure their future when all this goes down. when this House case is either lost or settled, it's going to go down. Well, in this article, Mr. Kessler was doing some kind of a public appearance, I believe, and Ross Dellenger was reporting on that. Some of the key details, and I'm not going to try to read this article to you, but some of the gist of it is this. Kessler was pointing out, look, these universities are bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Some of them are bringing in 100 million just in ticket sales alone. They've got these massive TV deals, and they can afford to pay their coaches millions of dollars. Even gave the example, the Alabama strength and conditioning coach is making $950,000 a year. You've got ADs making, $3.5 million a year in some cases, most making over $1 million. Yet, college athletic departments will report that they have $100,000 in losses. And he even used that number as an example. That's not accurate in his eyes. He's like, look, they're making money. If they can afford to pay their athletic director $3.5 million, then they're making money. How about this? How about instead of paying your athletic director $3.5 million and paying all your coaches all this money, giving more of that money to the student athletes? Instead of paying your strength and conditioning coach $950,000, pay him $500,000. Give the rest of that money to your football players. That's just one example he gave in the article, and I'll be honest with you. That's a fair point. It's a fair point, and that's why many of the coaches today are saying, look, we need to do revenue sharing with the players. And that is one model that a lot of people have touted as being the most viable solution, most feasible solution to the problem we face today in college athletics. And the reason I think the Big 12 and even the ACC, if they survive, are going to get left behind as far as competitiveness. I mean, heck, they already have to a degree. With the exception of Clemson and Florida State, the ACC and Big 10 have won every national title in the playoff era. And that was without $30, $40, and $50 million advantages in TV revenue. What's that going to do? You know what I mean? Think about it. What's that going to do? It's going to expand it even more. Now, at the end of the article, Kessler gave 4 possibilities as to how this whole thing could end and what a new college football model could look like. Number 1, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as I go through these as to why all of these scenarios, in my opinion, are bad for the Big 12 and the ACC, but I'm being a Big 12 channel, that's what I'm focused on here. First, the conferences. The NCAA economic regulations around compensation are eliminated, and the individual conferences compete with each other by setting their own regulations and rules, creating, quote, one marketplace standard for athlete compensation. Now, there's 2 ways this could go down. The conferences could all be equal across the board. They could have a salary cap, pay their student athletes the same amount of money, whatever. We all know that's not going to happen. There's no way the SEC and the Big 10 are ever going to agree to that. They're never going to let the ACC and the Big 12 eat at their table when it comes to revenue sharing. We know that. They've proven that. Or there's the model where each conference does their own thing, sets their own limits as to how much their student athletes get paid through revenue sharing or whatever, through some form of compensation. And if that happens, the Big 10 and SEC are going to be able to afford to pay their student athletes a heck of a lot more because they make a heck of a lot more. And they're going to make even more. The gap's going to widen in the future. So, again, and even if the ACC implodes and the Big 12 absorbs some of the ACC teams, you're not going to get the Florida States and the Clemsons more than likely, even though there are some out there who think that's possible. I don't. The Big 12's not getting Florida State and Clemson. They're probably not getting Miami. Those are likely going to the Big 10 and the SEC, which will get even stronger. And that's what a lot of Big 12 fans aren't talking about. If the ACC implodes and the Big 12 gets the leftovers, which would be awesome, the Pitts, the Virginia Techs, the Louisvilles, I'd love to have those schools in the Big 12. From a competitive standpoint, it'd be really fun. But from a financial perspective, I don't see how the Big 12 benefits from it, other than knocking the ACC out and maybe getting a little bit more TV revenue. They're still not going to come close to the Big 10 and SEC. Not happening. Number two, as far as Kessler's eyes for the future, or possibilities, he says it is an employment model. Athletes are made employees, or at the very least, they unionize in an effort to collectively bargain with their school or conference. Now, the employee model is something I actually am an advocate for. A lot of people disagree with me. But hear me out. If you can make the student athletes employees, guess what they have to do? Sign employment contracts. If they transfer, then they might have to pay a penalty. Might have to pay back NIL money. Might have to pay back money that the school paid them, whatever. Might have to pay back their scholarship money. Make them pay back something for leaving. That's what coaches have to do when they leave. They can negotiate a buyout. Make the players, if they do leave, you get something from them if they leave. That's what needs to happen here, in my opinion. But I don't see that happening either, because if you do that, then Title IX may go out the window, and you may lose a lot of your non-revenue sports, and that is not good for athletes. A lot of student athletes are able to go to college because they get those scholarships. And if they lose them, maybe they can't afford to go to college. You ever think about that? That's not good. That is not good for the health of college athletics as a whole. The third way that Kessler sees the future of college sports, the third option, he thinks is revenue sharing. A settlement from the House case produces a revenue sharing model for athletes. Basically, what he's saying there is the House case settles with the conferences and the NCAA, and thus the schools. And yes, they do have to pay some back pay in the probably $10 to $20 million range per school to these student athletes. But as part of that, they also decide, hey, we're going to have a revenue sharing model going forward where the student athletes make money. May not be full-blown employees, but there is revenue sharing. And again, this is probably the most feasible scenario. Even heard the guys over at 365 Sports say the same thing, and I agree with them. But even if that happens, guess what? Guess which two conferences can afford to share the revenue, the most revenue, with the student athletes? The Big Ten and the SEC. Again, either way the cookie crumbles here, the Big Ten and SEC are going to be in much better shape than the ACC and the Big 12. And even if with an employment model, they're going to be able to pay their employees. If they become employees, they're going to be able to make more money in the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just follow the money, man. Follow the money. And the fourth option is Congress. Will Congress intervene, and will the federal government take action with legislation that grants legal protection to the NCAA and potentially creates a carve-out for college athletes to earn compensation in a more regulated way? This is probably the least likely scenario, because it doesn't appear Congress is going to do jack squat when it comes to college athletics. Let's face it, they do have probably more important things to deal with, but they don't even deal with that well, and they don't even agree on anything. So what makes you think, and even Kessler talked about that in the article, they can't agree on anything? What makes us think they're going to be able to agree on anything related to college athletics? And Kessler even agreed that's the least likely scenario, as do I. And that to me, that's the best scenario. If Congress comes out and regulates how much athletes can be paid, and it's not based on the conference you're in, but they set a flat fee, and hopefully that cap is at a low enough number that it puts the Big 12 and ACC on a more level playing field. That's what would be best for the Big 12 there, would be for Congress to regulate a number that allows them to be competitive. But again, what are the chances of that happening? Slim to none. 1 in a million, 1 in 100,000 maybe. So again, the Big 12 will get left behind in that scenario. Yes, they might make more money than they do today if the ACC crumbles, but they're not going to catch the Big 10 and SEC, and they likely won't win very many, if any, national championships. And I don't mean to be so negative here. That's not my intent. I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm just trying to be real here. The Big 10 and SEC are the power two, whether we like it or not, and nothing's going to change it. As a matter of fact, the stuff coming down the pipeline is going to do nothing, in my opinion, except make the gap even wider between the haves and the have-nots. And even if colleges are forced to pay their coaches and their staff members less money. The Big Ten and SEC are still going to be able to pay them a lot more than the Big 12 and if the ACC survives the ACC, and definitely more than the Group of Five. So anyway, like I said earlier, any way this cookie crumbles, any way this thing shakes out, Big 12 is going to be left in the dust by the SEC and the Big Ten. So if you're a fan of a Big 12 team, you got to hope and pray that your team gets an invite to one of the Big Two, or just enjoy the ride, man. Let's enjoy a conference that will likely at least keep their seat in the playoff table, at least get a chance to compete with the Power Two and win some games here and there against them. There will be some upsets in the playoffs. There will be Big 12 teams win playoff games. I have no doubt about it. But can they win the big one is going to be the question. But let's just enjoy the ride, man. Enjoy a competitive league. Enjoy a league with a lot of parity. Enjoy a league with fan bases who are passionate, who love their conference, and who love their teams, even more so. And just, if you get a chance to win a conference title, enjoy that. Let's just enjoy it. Be a fan of your team so you can still enjoy the ride. And that's what we need to do. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Do you think the Big 12 ever has a chance to catch the Big 10 and the SEC, knowing what's coming down the pipeline? I want to know. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And I want to give a VIP member shout-outs today to two people. Brand new member, Shaggy of West Virginia. Thank you for your VIP paid membership. And then apparently somewhere along the line, I missed recognition to a member, a VIP member here at Couz's Corner named Squatch42, who joined about a month ago. Squatch42, I apologize for missing you. Maybe you changed your screen name or something, and I just didn't see it, or maybe I just overlooked it. But thanks to Squatch42 and Shaggy of West Virginia for being the newest paid VIP channel members here at Couz's Corner. If you want to become a part of this exclusive club, hit the join button below. If you don't see a join button, go to my channel homepage. There's a join button right beside my profile pic. Hit that join button. It shows the two levels of the pub level and the club level, the perks that come with each one. I put out my latest members only short video yesterday. Members can go check that out right now. I'm going to be doing more of those hopefully in the future. So don't miss out on those videos, and also access to early access to some content with limited ads if you're a club level member, things like that I do offer to my channel members. Also, I have a merch store. There's a link to that in the description box. You can get ONIT athlete trading cards in the description box with a link that'll help me make a small commission. You can donate to PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. All that's in the description. There are several ways you can support my work here. Help me keep the lights on, help me pay the bills, and help me grow this thing here at Couz's Corner. I appreciate you tuning into this episode. Check out this one here that's also about the Big 12. While you're at it, have a top shelf day. Q Country Roads.